In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about function values. So your essential question is, how do I evaluate a function for a number? So let's just jump into some examples. Find the following function values given f of x equals 3x plus 7 and g of x equals 22 minus 2x. So sometimes what happens is we have more than one function and we have to evaluate for a specific one depending on what they ask of us. So for this first example, it says find f of 0. So when I'm trying to find f of 0, that means I'm going to use the function for f of x. So what it's asking me to do is, usually this is like f of x. So what it's asking me to do is to take 0 and replace it with x. So if I want to find f of 0, then I'm going to plug in 0 for x and then evaluate the function. So 3 times 0 would just be 0 plus 7, and that would equal 7. So f of 0 equals 7. So that means when I plug 0 into my function, I get 7 as the answer. So for part B, they're asking us to find g of 11. So this time I'm going to use the function for g of x, and I'm going to plug in 11. So I would have 22 minus 2 times 11. So that would equal 22 minus 22, which would equal 0. So g of 11, when I plug in 11 to my function, I get 0. Now this one's a little bit different. This one is asking me to find f of 1, but then this 2 in front, because it's right next to it, it's saying that I should take 2 times f of 1. So this is written like 2 times f of 1. So I need to figure out what f of 1 equals and then multiply it by 2. So if I go back up and look at my function, f is 3x plus 7. So if I evaluate f of 1, I would have 2 times 3 times 1 plus 7, because this would be the 3x plus 7 part. So I plug in 1 for x. So then I have 2 times, and then I have, I'll put this in parentheses. So I have 2 times 3 plus 7, because you want to make sure that you do your function part first and then multiply it by 2. That's why I put it in parentheses. So 3 plus 7 then would be 10. So I would get 2 times 10, which would equal 20. So 2 times f of 1 would equal 20. So if I evaluate my function for 1 and then multiply it by 2, I get 20. Now this one involves both functions. It has g and f. So what we have to do on this one is evaluate g for 10 and f for negative 3, and because it's written as a fraction, that's asking us to divide the answers. So if I look back up here, g of x is 22 minus 2x. So this would equal 22 minus 2 times 10, I'm plugging in 10 for x, all over, and then f of x was 3x plus 7. So I'm doing 3 times negative 3 plus 7. So I need to work out each part separately. So I'm going to work out the top first, and then work out the bottom, and then divide the answers. So this would be 22 minus 2 times 10 would be 20. And then 3 times negative 3 would be negative 9 plus 7. So if I work that out, 22 minus 20 is 2. And negative 9 plus 7 is negative 2. And then if I reduce this, I just get negative 1. So my answer for g of 10 divided by f of negative 3 would be negative 1. All right, now let's say we're trying to find the values of a function just by looking at a graph. So it says find the following function values given the graph below. So the first example that we have is f of 2. So remember, when I evaluate a function, whatever number is in this position is my x value. So really, I'm trying to figure out where does x equal 2. So if I go over to my graph, this is the x-axis. So x equals 2 would be right here. So if I look down the line or up or down the line, this point is where x is 2. So this point would be the point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It would be the point 2, negative 8. So the value of my function at x equals 2 would be negative 8. So we're just looking for the point that they're telling us. So the next one is f of negative 4. So if I go over to the x-axis at negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I look up and down, then this point would be where x is negative 4. So that would be 1. And then the last point they ask us to evaluate is 0. So if I go back up to my graph and I go to x equals 0 and I look down the line, this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would be negative 5. So at 0, we have negative 5. So what you do is you just go to the number for x on the graph and you find out what the y value would equal. All right, the last thing that we're going to talk about is piecewise functions. And these can be kind of tricky. So it says find the following function values given the piecewise defined function. So this is our function, and this looks kind of crazy. What this means is we actually have two separate equations within our one function. So there's two pieces. That's why it's called a piecewise function. If the value of x is greater than or equal to 1, then we use the top function. But if the value of x that we're plugging in is less than 1, then we use the bottom function. So it's kind of like an if-then statement. So like if x is greater than or equal to 1, we use the top equation. If x is less than 1, then we use the bottom equation. So first we're going to find f of 0. So in order to evaluate this, I have to decide which equation I'm going to use. So what you should do is look at the inequality and determine which function to plug the number into. So I have 0. Okay, is 0 greater than or equal to 1? No, it's not. 0 is less than 1. So I'm going to plug my value into the bottom function. So I would use negative x plus 4, and I'm going to plug in 0 for x. Well, there's no such thing as negative 0. So I can just put in 0 plus 4, which would equal 4. So f of 0 would equal 4. All right, let's try another example. So let's try f of 4 this time. So if I look at my inequalities, is 4 greater than or equal to 1? Yes, it is. So we're going to plug it into the top function, which is 2x plus 5. And so I'm going to plug in 4 for x. So I have 2 times 4 plus 5. And so then I get 8 plus 5, which is 13. So f of 4 is equal to 13. All right, let's try one more. F of negative 1. So if I go back up to my function, is negative 1 greater than or equal to 1? No, it's not, but it is less than 1. So I'm going to plug it into the bottom function, which is negative x plus 4. So if I plug in negative 1 for x, then I have negative 1 plus 4. Well, two negatives make a positive, so this is going to equal 1 plus 4, which is 5. So f of negative 1 would be equal to 5. So just make sure you guys go back and answer the essential question and write your summary.